Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Manhattan. My name is Kathleen Oldfather, and I'm today's convener, as Les mentioned. And I'd like to thank Michael Oldfather for offering his assistance with parts of this program and for learning and recording the closing hymn, which you won't want to miss. This month's theme is becoming. Today, we'll be thinking about and talking about becoming a renewed earth as we give a nod to Earth Day, coming this Thursday, April 22nd. I'm so glad you're here with us this morning. Whoever you are and whomever you love, you are welcome here. Join others in this community in a breakout session for a few minutes of greeting each other and checking in. You will be returned to the service.
If ever there were a time for a candle in the darkness, this would be it. Using a spark of hope to kindle the flame of love, ignite the light of peace, and feed the flame of justice.
Thank you. Now we'll have an opening hymn, To See a World.
To see a world in a grain of sand, and a heaven in a wildflower, holding infinity in the palm of your hand, and eternity in an hour.
To see a world in a grain of sand, and a heaven in a wildflower. Hold infinity in the palm of your hand, and eternity in an hour.
To see a world in a grain of sand, and a heaven in a wildflower, hold infinity in the palm of your hand, and eternity in an hour.
I chose a reading this morning by Reverend Carol Hepikoski from a book, The Humanist Voices in Unitarian Universalism. My environmentalism and my humanism are inextricably related. My humanism tells me that human life is important and worthy of respect and care. My environmentalism tells me that to be human is to be part of an interdependent circle of all life. It is counterproductive to imagine ourselves as separate. My knowledge of today's world informs me that planet Earth, and thus the human life, is in danger because of the threat of global warming. I want to see life, including human life, preserved and thriving on our planet. My environmental humanism compels me to work to reduce the causes of climate change, the human practices that threaten the survival on Earth, survival of life on Earth. And normally we have a story for all ages, but today We have a message for all ages.
This is not a drill. My name is Greta Thunberg. We are living in the beginning of a mass extinction. Our climate is breaking down. Children like me are giving up their education to protest. But we can still fix this. You can still fix this. To survive, we need to stop burning fossil fuels. But this alone will not be enough. Lots of solutions are talked about. But what about a solution that is right in front of us? I'll let my friend George explain.
There is a magic machine that sucks carbon out of the air, costs very little, and builds itself. It's called a tree. A tree is an example of a natural climate solution. Mangroves, peat bogs, jungles, marshes, seabeds, kelp forests, swamps, coral reefs, they take carbon out of the air and lock it away. Nature is a tool we can use to repair our broken climate. These natural climate solutions could make a massive difference.
Pretty cool, right?
But only if we also leave fossil fuels in the ground.
Here's the crazy part. Right now, we are ignoring them. We spend 1,000 times more on global fossil fuel subsidies than on natural-based solutions.
Natural climate solutions get just 2% of all the money used on tackling climate breakdown.
This is your money. It is your taxes and your savings.
Even more crazy, right now when we need nature the most, we're destroying it faster than ever.
Up to 200 species are going extinct every single day.
Much of the Arctic ice is gone. Most of our wild animals have gone. Much of our soil has gone.
So what should we do?
What should you do?
It's simple. We need to protect, restore, and fund. Protect. Tropical forests are being cut down at the rate of 30 football pitches a minute.
Where nature is doing something vital, we must protect it.
Restore. Much of our planet has been damaged.
But nature can regenerate, and we can help ecosystems bounce back.
Fund.
We need to stop funding things that destroy nature and pay for things that help it.
It is that simple. Protect, restore, fund.
This can happen everywhere. Many people have already begun using natural climate solutions. We need to do it on a massive scale.
You can be part of this.
Vote for people who defend nature.
Share this video. Talk about this.
All around the world, there are amazing movements fighting for nature. Join them.
Everything counts. What you do counts.
That was impressive. One of the other concepts that we've discussed this year is beloved community. Beloved community is a community in which everyone is cared for, absent of poverty, hunger, and hate. Martin Luther King Jr. popularized this term for a society that values peace, justice, and inclusion. Dr. King was talking about the wider society, but this fellowship is also a beloved community. People here try to put into effect the principles Dr. King espoused, and UUs in general work to make the world a better place. Roger and I have found a spiritual home here. At the beginning of this pandemic, when things were so chaotic, a couple from this congregation brought me orange juice when I hadn't been able to find any. My husband thinks he will die if he doesn't get his glass of OJ every day. Another member of the fellowship came to our house to change a light bulb that neither of us could reach. That's the kind of support this fellowship provides. Many work to prepare our Sunday services and bring them to us on Zoom. There are others who help to maintain the blessing box, serve community meals, and work for social justice. We care for each other and have helped each other make it through this last difficult year. A beloved community needs all of these wonderful people, but there's something else it needs, and that's money. In order to maintain our infrastructure, pay the electric bill, and meet payroll for our excellent staff, we have to have financial resources. As we plan our budget for the next year, the Finance Committee has launched its annual pledge drive. Knowing that there may be some who have been affected by the pandemic and may not be able to donate financially, Roger and I have increased our pledge amount by 10%. I would urge you to give what you can, and if you can increase your pledge, please do so. This beloved community means so much to so many of us. Help keep it strong in every way. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Our Helping Hands recipient this month is Fairy Godmothers Fund. Fairy Godmothers Fund helps women who have immediate needs not met by traditional funding resources in the community. In fact, it gets referrals from these other agencies in the community. I was a founding member of Fairy Godmothers and have been very proud of what it has done since 2006. You can give to Fairy Godmothers by going to our regular website at uufm.net and clicking on Donate. You'll have the option of giving to Helping Hands, Blessing Box, or our regular operating budget. You may also send a check. All donations are greatly appreciated and help support our excellent staff and maintain our buildings and ground. Our offertory music today is Blackbird by Paul McCartney and John Lennon. I'm learning this song right now on the piano, and I really thank my teacher, Renee Brown, also our music director, for playing it here. As we listen to our offertory piece, please type your joys and concerns into the chat section of Zoom, and Reverend Jonna Lou Johnstone will share those following the music.
Thank you, Renee. That was lovely. Before I share our personal joys and concerns, I want to acknowledge that twice more this week we've witnessed on our televisions and computers a police officer shoot a young man of color, one a young teen. Dante Wright and Adam Toledo lost their lives necessarily and tragically, as so many others have. And again, we grieve with their families. And again, people gather in the streets saying their name. And again, police confront those rallies with force. And again, we wonder when it will end and consider how we can demand accountability. Also this week, we again heard the words mass shooting in the news. This time the FedEx facility in Indianapolis. Already this year, on 11 separate occasions, 4 or more people have died at the hands of others in a mass shooting in this country. Again, we grieve with families. Again, we wonder what it will take to end the carnage. And again, we wonder when it will end and consider how we can demand accountability. Holding in our hearts and minds those affected and the fear that others, including ourselves or those we love, could be affected, we feel the helplessness of not knowing how to respond and really wanting our world to be different than that. And we know that joy and woe are woven fine, And here in our community, we have a number of joys to share.
Thank you, Jonna Lou. Member congregations like ours of the Unitarian Universalist Association, or UUA, covenant to affirm and promote 7 principles. Number 7 is respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. This draws from a tradition that, quote, heeds the guidance of reason and results of science, unquote. Recognizing the threat of climate change based on reason and science seems in line with our respect for the interdependent web of all existence. Becoming a renewed Earth is an important goal. I confess to being a person who believes in climate change, but does not know that much about it. I believe in science. If 90% of scientists agree that climate change is because of human activities, I believe them. William Blake, in the opening hymn, the words, reminds me to see the world in a grain of sand and heaven in a wild flower. Greta Thunberg moves me with her passionate appeal to protect, restore, and fund the saving of our climate. But I needed to learn more. I heard Bill Gates interviewed recently about his new book, How to Avoid a Climate Disaster. I bought the book and have found it to be very straightforward, educational, and surprisingly optimistic. Gates says that the Earth adds 51 billion tons of greenhouse gases to the atmosphere each year, and we need to get that to 0, which I learned means by reducing carbon emissions and using other ways to remove the carbon. It is a net 0. We need to use the tools we have now, like solar and wind energy, make them better sooner. And most importantly, we need to create and roll out what he calls breakthrough technologies. We have to make clean energy so cheap that every country will choose it over fossil fuels, which is currently abundant and cheap. To argue that we have greater needs, which we have lots of needs, health, education, Gates responds, unless we move fast towards 0, bad things, and probably many of them will happen well within most people's lifetimes, and very bad things will happen within a generation. I like to share a short video by Bill Gates, and that will be followed by Reverend John Lou's reflection today.
In a typical year, the world emits over 51 billion tons of greenhouse gases. And as we keep doing that, the consequences for human life will be catastrophic. When I first fell in love with computers as a teenager, they were enormous, expensive, and only the government and big companies could afford them. But my friends and I became obsessed with a wild idea. What could we do if there was a computer on every desk? And now the wild idea is quite tame. Billions of people not only have computers on their desks, but even in their pockets. Now the world needs another breakthrough. In fact, it needs many breakthroughs. We need to get from 51 billion tons to 0 while still meeting the planet's basic needs. That means we need to transform the way we do almost everything. Our commitment to developing these innovations will mean the difference between a future where everyone can live a healthy, productive life and one where we're constantly dealing with the human and financial crises at a historic scale. Entrepreneurs and investors have to build new businesses and change existing businesses to get these solutions deployed. Government leaders have to enact new policies that drive the market for clean energy. And advocates have to keep their voices loud to hold all of us accountable for rapid progress. Avoiding a climate disaster will be one of the greatest challenges humans have ever taken on. Greater than landing on the moon, greater than eradicating smallpox, even greater than putting a computer on every desk. My basic optimism about climate change comes from my belief in innovation. It's our power to invent that makes me hopeful.
Ciao challenge, catastrophe, disaster, crisis, calamity, cataclysm, all against a backdrop of edgy driven music. We are being warned. Seriously, we have been warned for decades now, certainly since the first Earth Day back in 1970. We have wearied of being warned. When Rachel Carson wrote Silent Spring and Gaylord Nelson conceived Earth Day, we needed the dire warnings to wake us up and acknowledge the severity of what we faced. Today, though, I don't think these approaches are enough. True though the warnings may be, if we are to become a renewed Earth, we do have to pay attention to what is happening. We have evidence before our eyes of global climate change. Globally, the top 10 warmest years ever recorded have been since 2005. We've experienced unusually hot days in the summer and unusually hot nights, which prevent the cooling down we expect. Precipitation and heavy precipitation have increased, though some areas have experienced increased drought. Hurricanes have become more intense. Rivers flood more often and higher. The Solomon Islands, the Maldives, and many more are disappearing under the rising ocean. Sea ice is decreasing in the Arctic. The extinction rate for plants and animals is hundreds, if not thousands times higher than scientists would have expected. So climate is changing, and with it, weather and the very composition of what makes up the Earth. Yet we need to create a new becoming. The problem's so big. How do we become a new Earth? So much of what we've done to inspire action on the environment has not been inspiring. It's been preachy or technical or simply too dire and serious to attend to for very long. Even when people like Bill Gates and Greta Thunberg try to inspire us to a larger vision, the message of doom cannot be unheard, and we cannot seem to escape from the fossil fuel dependent consumerist worldview we have created. We need a new vision if we are to become something new, a vision that points to a different way of living rather than a doomed way of life, a vision that inspires. And there's potential there, right? Nature. Nature can inspire. Nature that becomes and re-becomes all the time. Now, I don't mean nature in a romantic and unrealistic way. We can't embrace the inspiration of nature and ignore the predator-prey relationship between many animals. We can't separate nature and cordon it off behind walls and gates to preserve part of it. We have to see and notice that nature is everything, all around us, even in us. I often remember in the spring an experience I had when I started divinity school. I'd moved to the city from having lived for a number of years in rural West Virginia. There in the Appalachian Mountains, I had greeted spring each year as I saw lambs appear in the fields next to their mothers, and spring greens, including wild edibles, pop up out of the ground. In the Boston area, spring was not the same. Then one day, walking from my tea stop to a class, something peeping out from under the sidewalk, a stunning, lush, though little green plant breaking through the concrete, and I recognized it. It was chickweed. Chickweed is a wild edible, and I knew it from the West Virginia hills, and here it was, chickweed in the city. Nature. I was ecstatic. Nature everywhere around us, even in us. Perhaps we need to step back and review how we name our problem. It's more fundamental than that we burn too many fossil fuels, or that we accumulate too much trash, or we destroy too many animal species. Our problem is our fundamental relationship with our world, or perhaps our lack of relationship with our world. We burn too much, we create too much garbage, we destroy too many animals because we're not in right relationship with the world. We continue to treat the planet as if it were ours to do with what we please. Nature is a tool we can use to repair our broken climate, George Monbiot said in the Greta Thunberg video we watched earlier. The two of them urge us to protect, restore, and fund nature. However, I am concerned about casting nature as a tool we use, even for the most decent and moral of ends. I'm concerned because I have come to believe that the problem is fundamentally what I would call a theological problem. Our assumptions about how the world works and what our role and place in it are counterproductive. Our view that nature is ours to manipulate and use has not worked out for us. The view needs to change. And the change I'm talking about is not moralism, a list of rules of what we must do or not do, but it's a rebuilding of our deep instinct, our truth, that we are dependent on the earth, that we need it, that we are part of it, rather than apart from it. We claim this, of course, in our UU seventh principle, respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. Do you know how this principle came to be? We UUs recognize that theological principles come from human beings, not from revelation from the divine. The divine may have an influence, but comes through human brains and souls. So we UUs agree to periodically review what it is we gather around and pledge ourselves to. We are, in fact, in the midst of such a review currently. But back to the seventh principle. Way back in 1979, UUs determined that the purposes they had gathered around when Unitarians and Universalists consolidated in 1960 were not robust enough. We needed to review and revise our statement of basic values. And I have to note that a key reason for the review came from the UU Women's Federation, who did not feel women were adequately included. So it took some time, debate, and discussion in the General Assembly and in congregations across the continent. The story has been told that in one large key meeting, where there was considerable discussion and wordsmithing of everything, very late in the process of adoption, someone suggested that they'd left something out and proposed respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. And that phrase received such immediate embrace that it stuck, and is the principle that more UUs can state than any other, probably. Reverend Forrest Gilmore wrote this about it. Our seventh principle may be our Unitarian Universalist way of coming to embrace something greater than ourselves. The interdependent web, expressed as the spirit of life, the ground of all being, the oneness of all existence, the community forming power, the process of life, the creative force, even God can help us develop that social understanding of ourselves that we and our culture so desperately need. It is a source of meaning to which we can dedicate our lives. So that's why I call it a theological proposition. Let's look at some of the specific words. Respect. We approach the world in which we find ourselves with respect. Respect entails admiration. We look at our world not with an eye to how it might benefit us personally, but with the idea that it is a value in and of itself. We respect it. And this interdependent web. We acknowledge that everything is connected, that we are dependent, just as other pieces and parts of the world are dependent on us. That cements an obligation we have to one another. Person to person, yes, but also person to tree, and tree to person, and animal to plant, and plant to atmosphere, and atmosphere to water. We are enmeshed and cannot do anything without having effects that we may not even realize we are having. We are part of an interdependent web of all existence. All existence is part of that web. Living things, inorganic matter, red buds and waterfalls, lambs and lions, rocks and steel, plants and persons. All existence is part of that web. And finally, of which we are a part. We're not separate from the web. We do not operate outside it, but inside it, in relation to it. And all this has implications for how we act in the world. To bring this more into our reality, I'd like to invite you now into the spirit of meditation. Find a comfortable position. And if it makes you more comfortable, you can turn your camera off. But relax. And maybe you want to close your eyes. You can relax them or close them. Notice your breath in and out. Each breath you take connects you with the world outside yourself. The air comes into your body from outside. And your body uses what it can and then releases what's not of use. Yet that air that you expel goes into the house plants in your home, maybe the grass outside, and nourishes it. We nourish one another. The plants sustain you, and you sustain the plants. This is a scientific truth you can feel in your body, in your breath. Breathe and feel that connection. Feel your connectedness to the earth, your rootedness in the earth. Imagine that roots grow from your feet into the earth, from your spine into the earth. Roots connect us. From the earth comes the food that you need to survive. You are dependent on earth and soil and the water that dwells within the earth and circulates around it, flowing in rivers and streams, evaporating into the air and returning to the earth as rain. You need this water even more than you need food from the earth. Notice your connection to earth, to water, and to air. From the roots you have sunk into the earth, notice the flow of energy up into your body and out the crown of your head, and imagine branches extending out from your head into the air and buds sprouting out from those branches. Buds that turn into leaves and flowers. Feel the sun radiating down and its energy being absorbed by your leaves. Notice the energy of growth and blossoming, the liveliness and vigor of spring. Energy comes into the tree and other plants, and through the food you eat fuels your every movement, even the movements you are usually unaware of inside your body. Even your thoughts produced by your brain and your memories. Energy circulates through the interdependent web, just as matter does. We are inextricably linked, not only to what is on this earth, but to the power that radiates from the sun. Know that that power and the power of the wind and the waves and the fossil fuels allows you to do more than most people who have ever lived were able to do. To produce light whenever you want it, to bring you entertainment, to allow communication across miles, to carry you and to carry goods across miles, to make possible our meeting here today in cyberspace. We are ultimately dependent on the entire universe, linked to it by our birth, by our life, and ultimately by our death. Hold in your mind and heart and body any feelings, thoughts, or insights that you've had in this short meditation. And as you are ready, re-enter our virtual space that we share. Know where you are. In touch with the earth and the universe. Knowing our ultimate interdependence with all. Perhaps then we can begin to develop a vision that takes us beyond the threats and warnings to the realm of inspiration. What would our world be like if we based our interactions with it on our seventh principle? What would it look like, feel like, sound like, smell like? How would we act in such a world? What would our priorities be? I want to invite you now into an exercise, creating a vision together. I am going to share my screen. And invite you to either on your computer or on another device, on a phone, whatever, go to www.menti.com and use the code 5624-7298. All of that's on the top of your screen, and I think Les is going to put it into chat so it will be easier to copy. And so
John, I can't see your screen.
you can't see the screen. Oh no. All right. Let's try that again. Share screen. Huh. That's weird. Okay. Let's try one more time. You all can go ahead and do that computer stuff because it's in the chat there. And do you see it now?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
And if people want to click on the link in the chat, it'll take you to that website. And then if you just copy and paste those numbers into the window that you'll get at the website, you can put words into John Lou's word cloud.
And at least theoretically, we can watch it appear. Yes, we're watching them appear. As you continue to add words, and as we continue to see the words appearing, let me offer you this from Max Cap. Often I have felt that I must praise my world for what my eyes have seen these years and what my heart has loved. And often I tried to start my line, "Dear Earth," I say. And then I pause to look once more. Soon I am bemused and far away in wonder, so I never get beyond "Dear Earth." I completely understand Cap's inability to get beyond "Dear Earth." When we are in awe of what is before us, words can evaporate. Yet if we're to change our relationship with the earth, we need to find the words. Dear Earth, dear Earth. Dear Earth, you have wowed me again. The greens this spring have never been brighter than they are this year. The buds and flowers are popping. I'm grateful for the rain, even when it brings a chill. I understand we need all these cycles and that our complaints about weather are minor in the overall picture. I'm sorry, Earth, that we humans have taken so much advantage of you and the resources you're filled with. We're beginning to learn. Really, we are. Look at the vision. that we're creating. Look at the vision that we're creating with love and efficiency and wind power and solar power and walking and gardens and technology and local supply chains and peace. And the seventh principle, and respect and sharing. Thank you all so much for participating in the creation of this vision. And this is what we'll continue to do, creating a vision. I close with the words of a Hawaiian prayer. May the earth continue to live. May the heavens above continue to live. May the rains continue to dampen the land. May the wet forests continue to grow. Then the flowers shall bloom. And then we people shall live again. Our closing song, Blue Boat Home, and somebody had written Blue Boat as one of the pieces of our vision, is one of the most popular pieces to support the 51-year celebration of Earth Day. And like our word cloud, it helps give us a vision grounded in our seventh principle. Michael Oldfather will play and sing, and he reminds us that Welshman Roland Hugh Pritchard, whose tune Hyfrydol, which is nearly 200 years old, has supported scores of hymns of very diverse religious groups, including 3 quite different versions in our own UU hymnal. The tune, as well as the words, are deeply loved. And if you know the words, I invite you to join in singing, though remaining muted. Michael?
Though below me I feel no motion, standing on these mountains and plains, far away from the rolling ocean, still my dry land heart can say, I've been sailing all my life now, never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home. Sun my sail and moon my rudder, as I ply the starry sea, leaning over the edge in wonder, casting questions into the deep. Drifting here with my ship's companions, all we kindred pilgrim souls, making our way by the lights of the heavens in our beautiful blue boat home. I give thanks to the waves upholding me, hail the great winds urging me on. Greet the infinite sea before me, sing the sky my sailor song. I was born upon the fathoms, never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home. And the earth is my blue boat home.
I leave you with words from Martha Kirby Capo. Our time together is finished, but our work is not done. May our spirits be renewed and our resolve strengthened as we meet the challenges of the week to come. This chalice flame is extinguished. until we ignite it again with the spark of our communion. And before we go into virtual coffee hour, I would draw your attention to Rob's announcement that next week is our annual meeting, and I hope that we will have many people here to participate in that. It will immediately follow the service. So we'll go now into breakout rooms for anybody who wishes to remain and visit with folks. And if you're leaving us, have a good week.